How's it going, everyone? Welcome, Eulier Gonzalez here, exploring now the user experience enhancements. So, this is a course of React Native. We're not going to dive deep on how do we get here. We just briefly mentioned that. That first, this is a course taught by Katty Kraman. Shout out to Katty Kraman here, right? She is a software engineer. She was a director of engineering mobile experience at Formidable, a creative agency that now she's currently working at software engineer uh, at Expo. So this is something quite interesting because this particular course is just to understand now how you can use React Native and understanding the mechanism and how that works, so you can now is actually or provide features to any company or to help them do a heuristic or help them to fix their bugs. Which is something that actually I'm currently working at a particular company, that is the Bank of Chile, in their mobile app for credit card, which is a very sensitive area, and there is a lot of security, a layer of security on top of that. So, um, because we went through describe what React is, what React Native is, what is the different amount then, that now, since React is for user interfaces and on the web, right? And now React Native is trying to close the development into one single development pipeline with the uh, with the web and the mobile. So this React Native provide you some of the core features and functionality most commonly used when you're developing your mobile apps. So uh, the way how these things work is by looking at the Fabric, which is the new reactive rendering systems. And this is now closing the gap of how you're going to target this different native on platforms. It is at least some of the rewrite or this new architecture that is targeting specific native or rendering logic in C++, and some optimizations behind the scenes. So this React or this Fabric, which is made of these several phases, pretty much like the uh, React, where you have now the trigger, the rendering, and the commit phase. Okay, so now on React Native we have is the render, where it creates now the React element tree in JavaScript, and then based on that it create the React shadow 3 in C++, and on the commit phase is now when he promotes the current React element tree and the React shadow tree to be mounted in the host, as well as the layout calculations in some informations here. And then on the mount phase is when now it takes or transforms the React shadow tree into a host view 3, which is something that now is the specific native instructions that are going to be mounted on the mobile. So you can see is now this particular elements here. The text input, this stack navigation items here, and tab navigation, right? And this pipeline can happen into several threads. They have two threads, the UI threads and the JavaScript thread. The UI thread is specifically for manipulating is host element, and then you have the JavaScript where the rendering happen in React as well as the layout calculations. So at least understanding this conceptually, so we can now actually get our hands dirty to build this small app, which is a shopping list. Well, we went through first how we set up the applications by looking at how we configure our developing environment first using Expo. And Expo is this now wrapper around React Native because React Native only provides this core functionality and features, but things like routing and navigations and also how you're gonna publish your app on any of those stores is something that you have to do by your own, or you can rely is on a framework, in this case Expo. So Expo not only provide you is some of this convenient way of doing routing, SVG icons, and styles, but the development of or the build process and publishing. Now, so far we haven't reached that yet, but what we have looked is how you can now set up your environment using ESLint and Prettier and TypeScript. How can you now define your components and provide some stylings in React Native? How you can create your components in this architecture, and the navigation, where unlike the web, you have now three types of navigation. Three types. You have stack, modal, and tabs. And how we can combine that for creating is our nested navigations, such as in this case, right? So we have not only the tab, okay, but also is the stack context here, right? So we also look at how can we do that, and now because this is part of the navigation, Expo, similar like Next, they provide you a file-based routing mechanism. So this is actually quite convenient, where each one of those folders represent is a route. So you define a index.tsx to indicate to the file-based routing, hey, this is the page that you're gonna, or this is the screen that you're gonna load in when someone navigate to this URL, and some other convenient files like layout, for example. Now, with that, all right, we also look at the input text and list. So like the web, when you define its form, here you use is now the text input, which is independently to actually grab its data from that. The way how now the screener layout is as a float, right? One next to another. You can also change that to render elements in a row, or a column. And when you want to render list, when you want to render a fixed list of or a fixed collection of elements, you might use scroll view, which is something that on the web is given you by settle, right? So the browser detects that and now actually provide you the overflowing behind the scenes. But here you need to explicitly use a directive for that. And if you want to render now, for example, data that comes from the server, which is a huge data set, and you need to map that. We use now a flat list, which is a specific class from the virtualization list, which is using a optimization technique called or programming technique sliding window, where it keep track is the visible area of your device and doesn't show you items way off the visible area. And also, as you screen, it mounts or unmounts items so you can actually see all of those elements in a breeze. Now, that's interesting, that's powerful, because now we are about to look at the user experience enhancement. There you go. Okay, cool. User experience enhancement. Let's get into this. This is a course made of deleting items. Say, hey, deleting items, ordering and sorting, data persistent and layout animation. Okay, data persistent and layout animation. Okay, layout animation. Okay, let's get into this. All right.
So we built the UI to add things, to delete things, add our shopping list items, to delete them, and to mark them as complete, but we haven't actually hooked this up, so let's do that. So firstly, let's hook up our onDelete function. So what are we doing on delete? So remember we added this alert here for onDelete. The alert to delete things, add our shopping list items, to delete them, and to mark them as complete, but we haven't actually hooked this up, so let's do that. So firstly, let's hook up our onDelete function. So what are we doing on delete? So remember we added this alert here for onDelete. So if we go to our shopping list item, there we go. So right now we are doing just a console log when you delete something. So let's change this to use an onDelete prop instead.
onDelete props. Exactly, because I add stack navigation here. All right.
So let's do.
So first thing first, let's go back to the code. Here, let's going to create now. Let's gonna do this. Get switch main. So get pull origin main. That's right. So we get the latest change. Get switch main. Do I have any change here? Please commit your what? Why do I need to commit this change? In fact, why do I need to commit? Oh, I get it. You get it. Okay, yeah, I get it. Exactly. Okay, makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Okay. So get switch to main. Please discard this change. Right, and this is now rendering is this. Okay. Okay. So get switch to main. Say get pull origin to main, give me the lattice chain from this branch. There you got it. And I say, all right, now it is time for us to create now a new branch of features. Git switch C M, say something like this. Holy moly. Yeah, it's like, what the fuck? All right, git switch minus C. Here you say, hey, it'll be good, okay, to create now a feature called user experience enhancement. Enhancement. That's right, you got it. Good. Now we can say is the initial list of element to be rendered, right? And then we're gonna now add the deleting items as it is. Let's get into this.
And on delete, this will be a mandatory function. And in TypeScript land, this means give me any function. So we don't care what it does, we're just going to call it without any arguments. And destructure it from the properties.
Because
and on press, we're going to call on delete.
Okay. This is now on the shopping. The shopping list item. Exactly. So on that particular component, on the on the shopping list item here, okay. Again, since we are following is the React way of creating applications, which is now you have now the state at the top, and then you pass down is the state or the functionality. The idea of doing this is, if you want to now, you can pull up or push states to say, hey, this is now from this point and on, all of these elements are going to be re-rendered or not. So one optimization technique in React is by pushing the state down, right? So only this particular element is where you're going to update that, aka re-render. Another is to say, hey, let me, if I can pass or if I can push the state down, which is known as the props drilling, then I want to now is get the element here. There's actually a particular name to do that. React React performance. Okay. And that is exactly. It's like pulling the content with children. Okay, so you have several techniques to improve rendering or to reduce rendering. Is to, or you push the state down, okay, or you pull the content up with children by saying is that, hey, this is not the component that I want to render, and then I want to also is pass this another component as it is. So in other words, you actually is now fetching or putting all of the content in that particular screen. And the other is using use memo or use callback, where use memo and use callback, the difference is that use memo is now memorize catching, memorize calculations. So for example, we use memo for wrapping them into a component, which is a calculation, or from states, right? Whereas use callback is for functions, right? And that's right. Okay. Cool. Jesus. Okay. So that's what we're gonna do.
And now we'll need to implement it. So back in our index.
All right. So let's go to define this functionality here. Which is on the go. On the type, hey, we're gonna receive is the on the delete method, which is, hey, this is how you define a function here. You say, hey, this will be a void type. All right. We're going to get this methods on delete. All right, which is passing down the functionality down there. Again, this is more like React Native or React. This is more like React way of building your applications. And you say, hey, on delete, I want to call this, and I want to implement now the functionality, which is on the, nope, I'm gonna close all of this because we don't need them and only open those that are relevant. And here we're gonna define is this, that is cons is going to define this handle delete. All right, store that into a cons because I don't want to reassign or I don't want to redeclare or reassign this value, right? So this will be now a function that I don't know how we're going to handle this.
On delete.
If we're going to work with the array, that might be quite silly to work with, because you can say, hey, the shopping list, right? I want you to find that element because here we're about to receive on handle delete the ID. I want you to find that, find here that element which this is the item, and if the item actually item.id is equal to item the ID, then we'll have that element, okay? But in our case, we want to remove them. So by having now the ID, in this case we already have the ID, but by having is this, hey, I want to now is I want to now is map, give me now a new collection of this where the ID are different, right? And here you can actually do this or do a filter. For example, hey, filter like this, like only give me is return the element of the array that map this condition, which is only return me those that are different from the ID. Okay, so I get now this collection for us, so we don't have to actually filter that entire data structure for ourselves, which is a good stuff. So we have now the new shopping list, right here, and then I want to update that state. How so? Well, pretty straightforward by setting the. This is how you now update the state in your applications. When you're working with objects or arrays, you also pass a new state of that. Why is that? This is if you want to work now with immutable data, which is something that you can do using IMER. Right now they don't actually do this kind of stuff. But the point of this is the idea of this immutable data is that we can have the ability to keep track state change, which is a mechanism of control when a data change over time. So set value here, the way how you update your state is by passing is always is a new collection. Why is that? Because you don't want to have some sort of this is to avoid is problems with linking reference, which is something that you come from a Java development, you're gonna do that a lot. So the idea is to, instead of passing now a reference of another reference of another reference of another reference, and because the way how JavaScript works, which is you can have shallow copy shallow copy or deep copy, which means that shallow copy is at that top level and deep copy is for all of those levels. And the point of this is that because in JavaScript, when you change due to the dynamic nature of the language, when you redefine or redeclarate most likely when you redefine a property of a value, it will impact on the object in itself. So in other words, Jesus. And I'm making this just to understand, just to briefly describe this. Now, it means that, for example, if you have now an object here, let actually is get into node here, right? To the node CLI. Hey, let's get into this. So if for some reason I define is an object, let's say using var. If for some reason I define an object using the sort of difference between let and con is that let allow you to redefine the value, whereas cons does not. In other words, with let, you can redeclare a variable. Let's say let var1 with the value of 1. Okay. With let, it doesn't redeclare the value. Say, hey, var to another type. You say, hey, no, I think no. Let allow you to redeclare a value to a different type, all right, which is good, but it doesn't allow you to redeclare that variable. In other words, say, hey, let var1, all right, of 1, say, hey, I'm going to change that to 1, because you can't redeclare that, which is great. Whereas with cons, it doesn't allow you to redeclare or to redefine a value, or yeah. So bear with me. This is now var2, and then you say, hey, this will be now the value of 2, right? So if for some reason I want to redefine the value to 3, it say, hey, this is not possible. Assignment to constant variable, right? However, if I want to now redeclare that, it doesn't allow me to do that. But this is the subtle difference of this. Let allow you to redefine the value of that variable, but not redeclare, whereas cons doesn't. So, and we want to explore and we want to explain now this cons var3 in this case with the user. So what happened when a user, say user1, when a user have a name property, let's say Joe, and age like 34, right? And city is Florida, right? And then some nested property here to say, hey, this is now the zip, the address, where inside of the address you have is this. You have now the zip code. We put here a random zip code, just like that. Here is now personal data. Say personal data. For example, like zip code, telephone, right? Say, hey, this will be now again a random string here, right? Say 1. Okay, so this is the data that we tell to JavaScript to store on the heap, okay, which is part of the component of the threads, which is the single unit of execution that it lives in any language, and particularly JavaScript has a very specific implementation of it, which is made of the call stack, the heap, global execution and function execution, and the asynchronous capabilities, which is the event loop, the macro and the micro task, and some of the API that it can have access based on the platform it lives, on the web or on the server. But in any case, this is something that we store here on the heap. So, because the way how this works is because JavaScript is this language that allows you to, it is a dynamic language. It means that you can change the variable, change the value of a variable at runtime, which is hey, I would like you to now change is the name, all right, to John, right? The question is, what will happen? Here, you may say, hey, it won't change, it won't allow you, but the reality here is that because now in JavaScript we have primitive and objects, all right, and the primitives immutable data, they are what it is, done, period, and then you have now objects which allow you to now store more complementary data, because here we are now on the user is storing the reference of this object in memory, okay, not a value. So this will allow you to do that. And you may wonder, what the French though? You know, you started to tripping here, and the idea is to, so for example, if we want to console log here with user one, you know, you say, what the fuck is this? Why did it change? It changed because this is how it works behind the scenes. So for example, if you want to now with a user one is reassign a new value here, let's say an empty object, of course it will going to throw you an error. It will say, no, you can't. You already defined this. So here's this, to boil down this, is that with cons, now, we only care about is what is being stored into that, whether it's a primitive or an object. And if this is an object, of course you can change the unfortunately you can change or mutate the props inside of that object. So how you can actually is avoid this, right? Well, you might say, hey, this now object or user 2, right? If you want to avoid to mutate this value, you wrap them into an object assigned to create a new value out of this. In other words, so for example, let's going to rename this, say go back to Joe, right? Joe. Wait, what? Yeah, Joe. Exactly, Joe. Okay. So the object here now changed to Joe, which is good. So instead of actually mutating that object, you create a new object out of this. So how do you do that? Well, there's several ways to do that. By saying, hey, user 2 is now using the object.assign, which is again the old way of doing this. When you pass in now is the empty object or the reference object.assign here. Object.assign here, you pass is the okay. You pass now is the target, which is, hey, is the name will be is John, right? And the source, which is the user one. So behind the scenes, what you're going to do is to see if any of these property match, is going to update that and create a new object from that. So this is now user 2. Say, oh, okay, I misspelled that. Object, it's a user has already been declared. Oh, that's right. So I reserve space in memory, unfortunately, for that. So how do I clean that? You can say, hey, user 2, you say, hey, delete this, right? It's a false, interesting, delete in MDN. Oh, but this is remove a property of that. How can you now release memory? That's a very good question. That's a very good question. How can I release a const declaration in JavaScript? So you're done. What? Oh, crap. So you're done. Okay. If you have in a lower level language, but again, that's the entire point of this. Anyway, so you can create another is a new variable here. If you want to try to take a look what the user console log user do is on it's quite interesting. It didn't create that, but now a user 2 is being used. This identifier is being used. So now JavaScript keep track of the identifier, so you can use that. But it doesn't reserve any memory in space and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So in any case, we're going to create now this user 3. All right. And if we take a look at this, we are now be able to see with this new change. Oh, it didn't change that. That's interesting. Wait, what? Okay, it's because I put it in the wrong order. This is the target, and this is the the target. I'm gonna put it here, Maria. Say Maria. See if I want to console log here, user 4 is Maria. Yeah, I put it in the wrong order. Okay, makes sense. Okay, this the target and the source. Okay, so now it actually changed in the proper order. Another way to do this is to say, hey, console user 5, and again, let's going to create now an object here using the object declaration. Spread that whatever you have on this target object, which is the user 1, and then I want you to now extend that or change the property that you have name from this user 1 to say, hey, Paul. Right? So this way, when you do this, oh no. Unexpected token this. Oh, Jesus. It's because of this. Yep. Is this one. X6. So now when you take a look at this, say console log 6, right? It actually changed that as expected. So the order here matters, especially when you want to update is your property. Now, because here we can now is modify, for example, with user 7, we can say is, if we do something like this, user 1, okay, I have now a reference to the user 1, and now console log here, the user 7 is now has a reference to the user 1, which is something that we changed. Holy fuck. Oh, we changed that because we changed the target here. Yeah, we changed the target. So unfortunately we update that. So, and let's say for some reason user 7, you want to we know that we want to rename this, okay? But for some reason, if we rename the personal data, okay, if we copy this data, okay, if we copy this data, we're gonna see something interesting here, and that is no, something like this. Say user 8 is going to now not only have a reference but create now a new object from the user 1, right? So now user 8 of course has that. So if we change now the age, we only mutating is the data of that, but not the user 1, which is a great stuff. However, if we mutate now the zip code, for example, to make it with only ones, unfortunately, we are also mutating is the reference from this object. In other words, is the user 1. Oh, we did it. Oh no, in fact, Jesus. Let me is delete user. No, it's okay. It's user 8 the personal data dot zip code, right, which is this one. And if we console log that of user 8, let's do this. User 8. Actually, now we mutate that zip code as it is, but with user 1, we also change that. And this is because when you are, again, part of the dynamic nature of the language. So when you copy a new object, you're just only doing a shallow copy at the top level properties. However, nested properties, when you mutate that, they will change. They will change is the root reference, the source reference. So how can we now handle this? One of them is to actually serialize that or stringify that, and then you transform that to create a new reference completely, which is, hey, let's go to in user 9, okay, I want you now to have is a complete different reference from this object by calling is the JSON dot stringify. Right now is the only way you can do this, and then pass the user 1, and then after that I want you to transform that into a JSON, a JavaScript object notation. So this user 9 that actually have the same, that actually have the reference of user 1, when you try to mutate is the personal data dot zip code to only 2, you change that properly, but not the reference here, you know. I did this because when it comes to update your state, it's important to always return is a new state out of this. Again, this is part of the way of how you can now state how you can update a state in React, and therefore that's why we have this immutable data structure and all that kind of concept from functional programming that I'm gonna cover that in other videos, but not right now. So yeah, let's get into this. This is the idea of what we need to return is a new state out of this. So the way to do this, because this element or this list of collection now is one level, so we can do a shallow copy from that by saying, hey, I want to, because filter actually create you a new collection. Okay, so you have here filter, so filter here, it creates a shallow copy of that element, one top level, which in our case is what we care, right? Now to create that shallow copy, we can say, hey, I want you to now update the value here. No, is set shopping list. You gotta be kidding me here. I want to replay. I want to now rename this. So I can safely say this, set shopping list. No, wait. Jesus law. Reference. Yeah, how to change the symbol reference in you get it. Oh, F2. 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 Okay. So if I want to rename this and all of the instance of this, that's right, say set shopping list. There you got it. Okay. Then you rename this set shopping list, and we're going to return now this new element here, right? Pretty straightforward. And we also have no, it's gonna do this. I'm assuming that this is what we're gonna do. And look at this, and look at all of the things that we need to know to understand, so we can now do that in the blink of an eye.
And now we'll need to implement it. So back in our index.tsx, let's create a new constant function called onDelete. So this will be an arrow function. So we will delete the item by the item ID. So the ID will be a string. So how do we get this ID? So when we pass this onDelete into our shopping list item, let's do onDelete, and this will be a function. And it will call handle. Oh, did I call this onDelete? Sorry, I meant to call this handle delete.
We're gonna pass this on.
It doesn't really matter, but I tried to call props on something, and in the actual implementation.
Handle delete, right?
handle something, but it's just a convention. So handle delete.
This is just convention here. So on here on delete, I'm gonna pass is the handle delete. That's right. Of course, this doesn't exist way below in a component, but it does, right? And it's complaining about because it says, hey, the ID is unassignable to type void. Okay, makes a lot of sense. Because here we're going to receive is the ID as a string. When we save this, now it accepts that as expected. Because here we're going to pass is now the ID. So to do that, we need to say, hey, I'm going to pass the handle ID. In this case, the item.id. Right. So if we go now back to our shopping list, when we click here and say yes, it removes that. Then we say click here on coffee, it removes that. So we are actually working is with data in memory. Okay.
And we'll have the item ID here. So item.id. So you can actually choose when you pass the item ID in. So I've chosen to pass the item ID into the function like before I'm passing it in. So this shopping list item, it doesn't need to care like what you're deleting. It's just like, yeah, this was pressed. I'm just going to call the onDelete function. So I'm choosing to pass the item ID up here. But it might make sense in some cases to do it lower down so the shopping list item knows like what it needs to pass in to delete it. That is up to your preference. Alright, so here, let's create a new shopping list. And this will have to be the existing shopping list, but without the item with this ID. So we will filter, so filter, item, and we will keep everything. So if item ID is not ID. So we're saying that we want everything where the item ID is not this one that we want to delete. And now we set the shopping list with the new shopping list, and I think that should be it. So if I delete this, it disappears. So tea, coffee, milk, and I can delete any of these items. Lovely. And the next thing you want to hook up is to complete or uncomplete an item. So we want to be able to mark something as complete, and we want to also toggle it as incomplete. And in this case, I think it'll be handy to make the entire shopping list item tappable, so you don't need to specifically tap on a particular point. I just realized that I think on the app that I created, I had a little check mark here for the completion as well, and I've forgotten to add that. Okay, let's do this UI first, and then we can quickly add the checkbox that I forgot. Okay, so in the shopping list item, we have a containing view, and we can change this view into, let's do a pressable. So pressable. So this will be an import from React Native.
Pretty much like a bottle here. So some sort of container here. You say, hey, pressable in React Native. Okay. Pressable. And hit slope, press retention offset, press rec, hit rec, and the bottom. This is something you can, okay, pressable. It's a component for that. Yeah, fingers are not the most precise instrument, and it is. Fingers are not the most precise instrument. Let's go over here. yeah, fingers are not the most precise instruments. It is common for you to accidentally activate the wrong element from that. So to help this, and because this is part of the user experience enhancements, Pressable is something we're going to do.
There we go. And then we'll also have an additional prop here. So let's do on toggle complete. So on toggle complete, because we want to toggle between completed and not completed.
Okay.
And this will also be a function, and we don't care what it is.
And
Let's
we want on
destructure it
the
from the
UI is
props.
going to show is this based on that.
And on the pressable, we'll do on press, and we'll call this on toggle complete. Lovely. So here in our index file, we'll add another property to our shopping list item type, and this will be an optional property for when the item was completed. So let's do completed at timestamp. And this will be an optional number. And I'm making it a number on purpose, and the reason for that will become clear later. But we're going to make it a timestamp, not a time string. And we'll do a const handle toggle complete. And this will be an ID of string.
So you're going to get that element.
String.
And then
so this handle toggle complete will be called on the shopping list item. So we'll do on toggle complete will be a function, handle toggle complete with the item ID.
And here you want us to add this property here.
And the implementation of this, it will depend on whether or not the item is currently completed. So the new shopping list,
the new shopping list,
we're going to map over the existing array. So let's do a shopping list dot map.
So returning is all of these elements here.
Okay, so if the item ID equals the one that we're toggling,
exactly.
Triple equals for a strict comparison. We're going to do some handling, but the default case, if it doesn't equal, then we're just going to return the item as is.
Which is return the item as is.
So how do we handle the new one? So we'll still return an object with the item, but we'll change this completed at timestamp. So the completed at timestamp will be if the current completed at timestamp, if it had one already, then we're going to set it to undefined, so uncompleted. And then otherwise, we're going to do date.now, which will give us the current timestamp.
The current timestamp when we handle.
And we'll set the shopping list to be the new shopping list. Lovely. So now when I select it, it's not working because we also need to pass in the is completed prop dynamically. So in our shopping list item, we have this is completed property. And now we know that it is completed if it has completed at timestamp. So we'll do boolean if item completed at timestamp. So now if I toggle it, it actually toggles from completed to not completed. So we can have multiple of these.
Alright, so here, this lady is doing this. It's like we always define is the onDelete. We're gonna safely delete elements. Okay. Yep, it's gonna do this. This actually works, as expected. Right. Get status. Oh, and the other is Pressable. Not right now. So get status here. How to put it? Yeah, get status. Get add everything here. Alright. You do this. You undelete and this. handle all this. And here you create a commit and say, hey, delete item, right? Good, pretty straightforward. Then we're going to define now is the pressable, or in this case toggleable. So that is going into this, right? Going into this, and now navigate to the shopping list. Okay. For that, navigate to the shopping list here, and instead of using as a view, we're gonna use this touchable. From React Native, right? We already import that. We can get rid of the view. Touchable. So this is touchable. You have now this style here. And my question is that what are the properties in the method that are relevant for this? You know, we already actually is applying is complete style to this, right? So on toggle maybe there might be a functionality here. Why can't use touchable?
We had one this completed old case. If it doesn't equal, then we just with the implementation shopping list items.
Yeah, why not?
Come item type.
Because it's not touchable, it's pressable. Quite close. Pressable. Okay. It's not touchable, it's pressable. So here pressable must have is other properties like this, right? So hey, now I'll define that. So on press, right? I want to call is now that particular on toggle, on toggle complete, which is a method that I'm going to execute here, or there's a method that I'm going to receive here, the on toggle complete, which is the function here that is going to be executed, and I'm going to receive this as a props on toggle complete, right? And we can get rid of this, right? And we need to actually add a data to our onComplete. Why is that? Because we want us to now keep track of the timestamp when we're done, and that is the name of this property. I don't know how they call it. Okay, which is complete at timestamp. So complete at timestamp, right? This is a number because we're gonna see that later. Why is this? This can be optional because otherwise it's gonna complain about it. Complete timestamp here, and then we define is the onComplete function. So cons on on toggle or handle toggle, right?
And we'll do
Again, this is just a convention, handle toggle completed, where we're going to receive now. The idea here is to look at that ID and then add this property here. So, since this ID is now a string, and we're gonna get from our list of components, I want to now is map over these elements. So you're going to return this new updated versions of the list with that element particularly toggle. In other words, shopping list dot map. Okay, go over all of these elements. Okay, and so if the item dot ID match the ID, there is some logic that we're gonna do, right? There is some okay. To 91 is to this, right? Makes sense. So we're gonna do something, otherwise we're gonna return is the item as it is. So here we're going to return is the new item, but with this new shape of data. In other words, we say this is the new item, because we're adding is this new data to this to actually toggle this new item here. Whatever you have in that item plus this property here that we define complete at timestamp, that'll be date new date dot now new date dot now. All right. How can I get is the now right now? Say date dot now. Okay, this is when you say, hey, okay, working with dates is quite annoying. New you have now this date object
on
here.
currently completed equals the one if return completed.
Oh, because this is now an implementation. Okay, that dot now. This is an implementation. Okay, this is not an instance. This is a static instance. Makes a lot of sense. So once we now adding that item here, then we're going to return is the new copy say, hey, return is this, but to make it sure, make it sure, you're going to return now this item as it is, right? This is the shape of this data that you're going to return, pretty much. Otherwise, you're going to return is the item as it is. This is a function that we're going to call is on our UI element, which is here. We define this as on toggle complete. I want you to now is run this handle to complete and pass the item.id for that. So after that, all right, on the pressable, because it's going to call this and then it's going to mark that as completed, which to me is quite interesting. This is completed. Oh, this is the property that we're going to receive here. Okay, it means that, hey, we're going to now is to check if this particular item is completed. Say, hey, is completed. Well, as long as there a particular value in the items here, yes, we're gonna do that. Otherwise, now set that to no. So if completed time tab actually have a value here, so if completed time tab actually have a value, the item dot completed time tab actually have a value, right? You want is to actually is go to the instance implementation, go to the static implementation, static method, not to the instance. Let's go to the date here, date MDN, right? For example here, static methods, exactly, they're not from the instance. So give me this static method here. Otherwise, it will be undefined, right? So now, actually, when we toggle this, the component will handle that, and then, of course, update that property and append that property to the collections. And since this property now exists, we can actually show on that element here. So when we toggle here, perhaps it's not reloading that, but if we toggle here, does it work? Let's see, why is that? The shopping list we're using is now pressable to do this. Pressable to do it. So if there is no element here, so if the element exists, do nothing. If the element does not exist, do it. And there you go. Does it work? Reload this. Okay. Did I add that it's completely boolean here? going to update the state, which is shopping. Okay. First, we're going to create now a new state here. To say, hey, new shopping list, and then we're going to update that state, which is returning is a shallow copy from mapping this object and set shopping list function and pass now this new state from that new shopping list. That's right. It's complaining about because you say, hey, this is not the shape that I'm expecting. It's not assignable to this. Set action shopping list. Shopping list items. It's not able to type shopping list item because of the number of the item shopping list completed time step. Oh, of course. It's because of this. I need to spread that operator. I need to spread this element that I have on the item, and then you're going to build this object as expected. So now, if we go back here, we actually toggle and fuck that shit. Actually works as expected. That's lovely.
And we'll set the shopping list to be the new shopping list. Lovely. So now when I select it, oh, it's not working because we also need to pass the net timestamp. So now if I toggle it, it actually toggles from completed to not completed. So I can have multiple of these and they will toggle.
Alright. Well, that'll be all for this video. Take care. Bye bye.